Hello, everyone. My name is Priyanka Bhide. I am the co-founder of Kubernein Initiative, and on behalf of REVOLVE and Kubernein Initiative, a very warm welcome to you all to the launch of our India Sustainability Report. I also have the pleasure of welcoming as panelists and keynote speakers to this session. We have giving the keynote address Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, who is the director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, NIUA. We have Tarun Sharma, who is the co-founder of Nagrika. We have Neha Bellal, who is an independent architect. And we also have Uttra Dasgupta from the NIUA team, who's worked on the CITIIS project. All of the panelists will later speak about some of the contributions that they've made to the report. But in brief, this report presents a snapshot of perspectives on India's sustainability journey towards meeting its SDGs and where we are today and where we need to go. It is curated under Revolve's themes of water, energy, circularity, ecosystems, and mobility. Sustainability is, of course, at the core of India's growth ambitions. The SDG agenda has been a strong guiding force for India, a country that has sought to balance people with the planet and progress. And achieving this balance, of course, requires a shift in business as usual, but also a shift in life as usual. A lot of which is already underway, but of course, like any country in the world, there's much yet to be done. And so this report is very timely, first because 2023 marks the halfway point of the SDG targets. And we are also days away from the G20 meet that India will be hosting for the very first time. Without any further delay, I am going to officially announce the launch of the report. I will ask my colleague Adya Shah, who has really been the backbone of pulling together this report, to share a link on the chat box from where you can download the report. And I will also very briefly take us through some of the key aspects that this report brings together. So under each of the themes, water, energy, circularity, mobility, and ecosystems, we have a brief snapshot of facts, of government policies, of challenges and opportunities that have been put together by our in-house teams and designed by the fantastic designers at REVOLVE. We also have a map of India, which highlights a few of the promising projects that are forward-looking within each of the states in India. We then have, under each of the themes, a collection of articles, essays, perspectives, interviews, as well as photo essays by experts from the field that have generously contributed their pieces to us. We have an excellent cast of thinkers and practitioners, and I will quickly take us to some of who we have. We have, of course, in addition to the ones that are joining us for this webinar, we have Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar, who has given us an interview on perspectives on just energy transitions. We have Dr. Prakash Keshavan, who's written about his book that looks at climate justice. We have Dr. Anita Varghese and Divya Kilikar, who have written about the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, and Aishwarya Raman, who's also written about mobility, Sumaira Abdullali, who's written about noise pollution, who's had done an interview with us on noise pollution, Dhritimhan Mukherjee, who we have some excellent photos from him, this is just a small selection. There are more authors that have contributed, their pieces will also be available on the website of REVOLVE. And this report is free for all, so I encourage you to download it, to circulate it, and share it with anyone that you feel may be interested. I would now like to invite Stuart Reigeluth, the founder of Revolve Media, to speak a little bit about Revolve's journey and in sustainability and how this report fits into its program.
Thank you very much, Priyanka, and thank you to Vaidya Shah from Kubernein for the content coordination efforts. Without her, this would not be possible. That should be reiterated. And thank you to Ambika from Kubernein as well, who's been pivotal in giving us strategic direction with Priyanka. So huge thanks to Kubernein ladies, and big thanks to the colleagues from NIUA, Hitesh, Naeem, Uttra, and many others. Thank you for joining us at the later stages of consolidating the core content, and in particular, in your case, the CITIIS angle, which is very interesting and very important, as well as humanity at large goes towards greater and greater urbanization, with all of the challenges that come with that. So I'm delighted to be here today. I'm delighted to meet Neha and Tarun as well. Welcome to our official launch, soft launch of the digital version of our report. We are planning on printing copies with NIUA later this fall, in October, I believe. We're going to try to have a more official print launch in Delhi or in India, which we will communicate to our colleagues that have joined today or who are seeing this video. So as Priyanka mentioned, I'm the founder of REVOLVE. We're a communication group all about sustainability. We cover the main themes beneath that overarching umbrella of sustainability that are reflected in this special country report on India, namely ecosystem restoration, energy transition, circular economy, water resources, and sustainable mobility. So as Priyanka mentioned in the highlights of giving a glimpse into what the report is about and looks like, it's structured according to that thematic approach. And we have as well a special photo essay by some colleagues that work with Round Glass Sustain, which is a very avant-garde environmental nature / sustainability outlet / platform in India, which I also encourage you to explore and learn about. That's Round Glass Sustain. And we have a special section, as I mentioned, with highlighting sustainability initiatives and projects in those 12 cities that are currently part of the CITIIS, CITIIS. Be careful of the spelling, that our colleagues Hitesh and others will talk about more in detail. So I encourage you to look at the website link in the chat to download the report. Feel free to give us feedback. Feel free to write to us. Feel free to provide follow-up ideas. This is a big step in the beginning of a journey towards covering sustainability more at large in India and Asia that we've embarked with Kubernein on in the past couple of years, and we're happy to see that growing and gaining traction with other partners such as NIUA. I should also say that we had a plethora of content, and again, thank you, Vaidya, for all of your efforts. We have additional material that did not make it into the final PDF/print report that is going to be highlighted and posted and published online at revolve.media. So look out for that additional content. We have some great photo essays, some really good visual journeys into different aspects of India and initiatives happening now in this broad country that we're still exploring. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in India in October, hopefully. And on that note, I'll pass it back to Priyanka and you guys to have a nice discussion. Thank you very much again, Priyanka and Kubernein.
Thank you, Stuart. You did a much better job of presenting the report. Thank you very much. You did it justice. But without any further delay, it is my honor to introduce to everyone the keynote speaker for today. We have with us Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, who is the director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, the official think tank of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in India. Mr. Vaidya has over 2 decades of experience in inclusive urban development, governance, and infrastructure. He has also been a critical part of teams that have designed and rolled out the national urban flagship missions in India of the Smart Cities mission, as well as the Atal mission for urban rejuvenation and transformation. Mr. Vaidya, thank you very much for taking the time to join us for this launch, which is special not only to the teams of Kubernein and REVOLVE, but the large family of contributors that we have now gathered for this initiative. The floor is now yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My co-panelists, REVOLVE organizers, Kubernein, and all who have joined this launch of Sustainable India report. I think it's very timely that we are launching today this report. As Priyanka just said, we are just a couple of days ahead of Delhi Declaration, which is going to happen on the G20 culmination of India's presidency within next couple of days. And as a part of G20, National Institute of Urban Affairs has the proud honor to really work on Urban 20. And Urban 20, the communique which we made had 6 themes. And all 6 themes really talk about sustainable, how to bring sustainability in our practices. And it talks about environmental responsible behavior, how to encourage that, how to bring water security, how to talk about work on climate finance issues. How do you really look at urban resilience and economy talking to each other? How do you improve local culture and economic development? But overall, all of that has to be cities governance structures and planning instruments. How do you tinker with them, as well as while we are scaling up and talking about sustainability, how do you bring digital and technology into it? So all of that is going to be is the promise which India has done in its communique on Urban 20. And for me, I think these are not just the themes or the statements which are made in the communique, because all of us know that life of communiques and others. But I think it is a promise which the India is making to the entire world by saying that we not only believe in it, we give full commitment on ensuring a resilience and inclusive urban future. I think that is the biggest statement India has come up in the Urban 20, that we really want to convert these intentions to actions on the ground. And I think the big example is the LIFE project, which India has started. It really showcases the commitment towards this journey towards sustainability. While we all talk about sustainability, and I was going through the such a rich articles which has been written by all the contributors to this magazine, I think it's a great valuable insights from not only practitioners, thinkers, as well as people who are advocating on sustainability in the thing. And I think these insights will definitely provide the guidance to the cities which are now leapfrogging towards a journey of net zero 2070. And I think while net zero 2070 seems to be a distant dream, but I think we just as an NIUA had completed a survey of 126 cities in the country, which is like around 50% of India's urban population. And the themes which you have in the magazine under the REVOLVE, which we are launching today, are almost the same. We are talked about urban planning, we did talk about energy, we talked about water, we talked about mobility and air quality, and we talked about circular economy, waste, all of the topics which you have talked. And to be, we did this survey with 126 cities, and very, very surprisingly, we did not do a, you are good, bad, ugly, a monitoring, but we say how prepared you are to leapfrog to this journey of sustainability. And while we are sometimes too harsh on our cities, the results showed differently. Out of 126 cities, 9 cities were 4 stars. When we say 4 stars, it means they have not only taken up a project, but they are right now moving up, doing a demonstration project and taking it to scale. When we say 3 stars, this means the cities have committed the budgets to the sustainability projects. There were 22 cities which have started thinking, 64 cities which have started thinking about climate issues and climate practices and start thinking about climate actions. And then there are some cities which need a lot of handholding to really take it, but they have started initial baby steps towards that journey of climate. So I think that's a great thing, and this type of a report will really push this whole agenda. And when I look at this report and was protected, for me it's like a 7 points which really are important why we are doing this report. One is to create an awareness among the people. And that's the where we are looking at. People should know that these are challenges, and I think these are the issues cities are suffering, and that need to be things. So peer-to-peer learning from practitioners. What is the guidance that is there? And second is what we are putting out through this report is the wisdom for cities to make choices. What type of choices they make, whether this is the right path or that is the right path. I think that flexibility we are doing, and based on these choices, we are nudging cities to unlock the financial programs and financial opportunities for them. Third is, based on the actions which the city will take, how do we influence the policy and environment, create an enabling environment for cities to take those actions? And I think that is where this type of report really build, and it also brings new thinking that what type of skills are required, and if these skills are required, what type of capacities are required at the local level. So I think this type of a report really brings a lot of softer skills or softer thoughts into mind, which are very hard to get, because it's very easy to get a hard infrastructure, but it is very hard to get softer thinking and nudging behavior, which takes a lot of time. So I think I'm at NIUA. I think we are really working quite a lot on because we are realizing that more just giving doing a project, it's the frameworks and tools for cities which are more important. And I think this type of a report creates that tool and resources for cities to start thinking about it. We also feel that it's only not the practitioners, but we have to catalyze the whole ecosystem, and whole ecosystem can be catalyzed if we bring different partners together. So thanks for Kubernein Institute and REVOLVE to really have a trust in NIUA so that we can take this journey of coalition, aggregation of thoughts and aggregation of minds together further. Then, as I said, we are also creating a lot of demonstrative projects, and I'm very happy to see 12 projects which cities have done last 2 years, which NIUA has been working, because we believe that when you do a demonstrative projects, it is the more buy-in for scale up which you get it. So local buy-in becomes very, very important. And when people see from their eyes that small initiatives can really create such a big impact, it has a domino effect to change the larger ecosystem. And I'm very happy that some of the projects which NIUA has been working on it and demonstrating, because what we learned in 12 projects, which you will read in the report, is cities require, it's a good to have an idea there, but from a journey from ideation to maturation is a very difficult journey. And from maturation to implementation, you require a very different skill sets. So how do you make that balance between ideation to maturation to implementation and then to impact which you are looking? You need a different type of skill set. You need a different types of project preparation as well as a project design processes, and you need a lot of hand-holding to cities. And I think that was a learning which we have, and the tools which we developed during that is available now to 4,000 urban local bodies in the country. But having said that, I always believe that the interplay between the economic development, which we all want our cities to be, inclusivity and sustainability will be very, very interesting if this trilogy has to really play together, because if I go back to Indian mythology, when I look at economic development, inclusive development, and sustainable development, it always reminds me the Hindu mythology, which says that there is a Brahma, there is Vishnu, and there is Mahesh. So one brick, and all three of them work together in tandem if we really want that transformation, and the planet, as Priyanka said, planet to prosperity has to happen. That trilogy has to work. We cannot have only inclusivity and only economic development. And I think sustainability really brings that foundation between the three of the elements which we are working on it. So I won't take much time, but I really like that this is so much of knowledge which is available through this great articles which I looked at it. I really looked at it, the 5 areas which NIU is working, and the approaches which NIU is taking, and I think this report will really inspire cities to take actions on the ground, because end of the day, it is action, action, and action, which really will speak how we really want to unfold the sustainability moving forward in our country and in our transformation process. But at NIUA and my learning for last couple of years, I have come up with the 7 approaches, and I just will talk about quickly on those 7 approaches. One is, we need to have if we have to have a local level, the sustainability tool at action has to have a local level, and that action should be based on data. So evidence is the much first step towards this. Second is, how do you convert the evidence to the planning process? Third is, from how do you move the journey from the planning to project? And while you're moving the journey from the planning to project, how do you bring a local buy-in and through demonstration projects so that people start seeing a value what we are talking about? And while you are doing this, you need a lot of handholding and skill sets and capacity building to do that. And I think innovations and technologies will play a lot of role in this whole thing. Then we need to have, as I said, we need to have an aggregation of minds to put together, because none of us has an answer to all the situations, and we need to bring our minds together to really take it forward. But having said that, we also now need to realize that India is a young population. Average age of India is 29. And how do you bring this hungry souls back to the start thinking about sustainability is a responsibility of all of us. So building a future leaders who can take this journey forward is a much more important. And I think this type of report really brings that nurture these young leaders to take this journey forward. So with that, thank you very much. Great congratulations to REVOLVE, Kubernein Initiative, and all the partners who have contributed to it. I think it will definitely contribute not only to the sustainability story of India, which is unfolding, but also influence the G20 countries to take this journey forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vaidya, for being here and giving that excellent overview. Absolutely, we need the data, the creativity, and finance were the 3 things that stood out to me the most to make this trilogy function, and under very strong leadership as well. So thank you, and for bringing those perspectives and sharing the work that you all have been doing with cities that are very different in terms of the context and issues that they're dealing with to achieve these 3 things. We really appreciate you having taken the time to be here. I am aware that the G20 has ensured that your schedule is very busy. So if you need to leave, that's completely okay. You have left us in the very capable hands of Uttra Dasgupta, who will answer any of our questions.
Sure.
But thank you
very much. And thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you, everyone. My apologies, I have to leave, but thanks. And we'll keep this journey forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And this is a journey which, again, I'm going to actually repeat what Stuart said. It's a beginning, and we are going to have many more articles and perspectives on board. But to get some of that thinking started, we have curated a short panel of contributors that have written for us. And it is my pleasure to introduce them to you. We have Tarun Sharma, who is the co-founder of Nagrika, which is a social enterprise that is building a movement to turn small towns into thriving and resilient communities. Tarun has worked extensively on city governance, city renewal, housing, livelihoods, mobility, and land tilling. We also have with us Neha Bellal, who, as she describes herself, is a nomadic architect and has worked with organizations in sustainable construction before moving on to building her own mud house in the Himalayas. She has also recently published her first book, Live the Change. And we also have with us Uttra Dasgupta, who is the knowledge officer with NIUA for the CITIIS project. Uttra has worked for over a decade on central, state, and local government programs on urban revitalization, infrastructure development, and culture-led development, which I thought was very interesting. Welcome, everyone, all three of you, to this panel discussion. I am going to put my first question to Tarun. Tarun has co-authored a piece for us with his co-founder Yutika Vora on bottom-up led urban mobility solutions. And one of the and it got me wondering how several, outside of the government institution, right, there are several actors that can come into play to push us towards the sustainability targets that India has put down. So who, in your opinion, are the key actors outside of the government that can play this role? And what are the ways in which this can be done?
Thanks so much, Priyanka, and thanks to everyone on the panel as well as Hitesh before me for organizing this very pertinent and relevant discussion on sustainability in India. And congratulations to both REVOLVE and Kubernein to launch this report on the heels of the G20 declaration that is going to happen in a few days in Delhi. And I think it's quite poetic or justified that we have Kubernein, because I tried to situate my answer in the word governance, because you asked, other than governance actors, government actors, who are the other actors and voices that probably have a role to play in shaping this journey. And Kubernein, as you of course know, is the word root for the word governance, and which essentially means steering, to steer. And largely, government is a structure, but governance is a process, and the process has multiple actors, and government is one of the very key actors. And I think in terms of when you talk about voices, in terms of other actors that are integral to shaping this journey, I think there are a lot of other voices and actors that have an integral role to play in shaping India's sustainable journey. And it's just very curious in terms of the chapter that we have included is on bottoms-up approach to mobility planning, and this relationship between data, evidence, what Hitesh was also talking about, and its role in shaping policies and decisions has been going back for a very long time. Since my initial thesis that I worked on was a policy analysis exercise when I tried to look at the data gaps in mobility planning for JNNURM projects in Chennai. And at that time, CDPs, which were the city development plans, were an initial document that were prepared to, kind of create a draft of future programs and projects that could be included. And at that time, the idea of citizen participation that was included was way back in 90s or 80s. There was a conclave that was organized by UN Habitat, where citizens were there. And I think it was at least 20 years before or 15 years before the CDP was prepared. And when the CDP was prepared, the original CDP actually referred to that 15-year-old document that the citizen participation has been achieved. at that time, that was the uh, conception of including citizen voices. We have come a long way from there. And in fact, in our chapter, we refer to cities, which coincidentally we have Uttra from there. And I had the good fortune of being part of one of the cities project initially in Dehradun. And I was quite astounded by this very novel approach. And I had not thought that something like this could be actually achieved, where for a good period of time before you actually rolled out any tenders and projects, you had a phase where you would involve citizens, where you would involve key stakeholders and involve in a real sense, not for just fulfilling formality. And I think these are the approaches which kind of found a lot of these voices, and that in a way also answers your second question, that what are the ways in which some of these voices can be included, because the voices that we need are definitely the other actors that are part of the governance, which is not just the government. There are civil society organizations, there are academics, there are local groups, and almost every month we talk to many such organizations for one of our podcasts, where we come across such fabulous, astounding forces to reckon with in their own cities. They might not be recognized at a state or a national level, but they are such pioneering forces who are changing the course of history in their own cities, whether they are rejuvenating ponds, whether they are teaching their RWAs or their housing societies about recycling waste, telling people how to take care of animals. There are just so many people. And I think these voices need to be included in this journey of understanding what sustainability means. And government definitely has the first role to play in enabling these voices. So I think we talk about inviting spaces, and I think cities and some of the other programs in other, like Swachh Bharat Sarvekshan, they have created at least a beginning where the citizen participation or engagement is not cursory. There are still, of course, there are ways in which this needs to be taken further, that it is still happening at a very early stage. There is still not so much involvement once the projects are done and once the engagement actually begins, once the construction or implementation begins. So I think looking at a life cycle approach of engagement of these distinct voices is one of the ways to create a broad base of participation and giving a pathway to these voices. So I'll keep it at that, because if there are more pertinent comments that might be needed, I'll come in again.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, and then I'm going to take that same question to Neha, who has worked on ground, engaging with communities on sustainability initiatives. But before that, I'd like to make an announcement. Although I realize people cannot jump in and speak, we are taking questions and comments. So please do put your questions and comments, and we'll include them in our discussion as well for those who have joined us for this launch. Okay, so my follow-up question, Tarun, to you, and then next to Neha, is what do you, of course, there are clearly these mechanisms through which these voices can be included, and perhaps more can be done. I don't know how much it's disaggregated in terms of inclusivity, but what is the level of awareness on ground in engaging, especially on sustainability issues, right? What is the level of awareness, or just from your own experience?
I think when it comes to, there is definitely a very clear knowledge chain which flows from the international discourse on climate change, right? And in fact, when this panel came, and the original, I think one of the things that the report is trying to understand is also that how to balance growth with sustainability. And it just so happens that I'm sitting in Dehradun, and Dehradun happens to be the place where one of the earliest original environmental legislation took place, famously known as the Dehradun Quarry case. And I grew up hearing about this case, that limestone quarries, which were in Dehradun Masuri area, were shut down. And at that time, in 1986, Supreme Court actually did not use the word sustainability, but it became the doctrine of sustainability, that how do we balance the needs of economic growth with the needs of environment of people who are living in these areas. Having said that, what this made me think, and then when I looked at the evolution of the environmental legislation in India, a lot of it definitely, and even now, has been influenced by the international conventions. In 1986, even though it was triggered by the Bhopal gas tragedy, the wheels were turned in motion by the 1972 Stockholm Conference. And then there were a series of environmental legislations which used one particular article of the Constitution, which is Article 253, which allows Parliament to create laws on issues which are of international nature, right? And for that, the Environmental Protection Act was legislated, especially because Bhopal gas tragedy had just happened. But since the Constitution has been framed, we have two articles, Article 40 to 48 and Article 51. Of course, the clauses were added in the 70s, which provide an obligatory duty, which is a directive principle, to state organizations, the state governments, to take care of the environment, and also provide a fundamental right, a fundamental duty to citizens also to take care of their environment. So even though we hear a lot about the supply side and the government side of taking care of the environment through being part of the various climate conventions, somewhere we still are not very aware of the fundamental duties as citizens. So I think the awareness at the local level of climate change, of sustainability, the vocabulary and the language is quite distinct. The experiences that people have of dealing with climate change not always resonate with the kind of action that might be taken, even though they are in the same direction. But I think the resonance still needs to come. But as I said, that starting from the time when I was doing my thesis to the time that we are now, the awareness is a lot more. And because of many of these initiatives, people are still a lot more aware than they were 10 years ago. And I hope that initiatives like these and more discussion, more knowledge about it will make it more mainstream even for citizens, including citizens in smaller cities, because that's where I think a lot of this knowledge gap still exists.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very valid point. In these smaller cities, right, that are growing and developing and growing also in terms of just architecture, concrete. And so I'm going to add a nuance to the question the same question that I'm going to put to Neha. Neha, in your article, you've written this beautiful article on your own experience of building a sustainable house in the Himalayan region. And what I found fascinating was this almost conflict within the community that you saw there in the local community, where you were using their own traditional techniques and kind of knowledge and skill to build this structure. But on the other hand, you saw that a lot of the newer architecture was the more modern architecture. They were using materials that were perhaps more fashionable or maybe cheaper, but not necessarily those that are suitable to the geography or the environment. So I would love to hear from you, and if you could share some stories of actually your interactions on ground in terms of how this duality plays out.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity, first of all. So sustainability in architecture is pretty vague. So on one hand, people can still put a solar panel on top of the house and say, I'm living in a sustainable house. But in the villages where I go to, so I decided to go further into the Himalayas to build a house, because I realized I don't have any power with any of the government or to deal with them. I don't have any, that's a big whole issue. So I went down to a small village called Van in Uttarakhand. That is one of the most last village that the road goes. And beyond that, the high Himalayas take over. So when I was living there, I realized pretty much everyone has a mindset that we need to have a strong cement house of late. Cement, I think, maybe because of the Western influence, past 100 years, it's been cement all over. So traditionally, there were really beautiful mud houses with stone tile roof. So you have a nice, beautiful mud walls, stone walls, and stone roof. But now everything, people have been replacing that with cement walls and flat roofs. So in any area, cement does not make your house feel warm or cozy or anything. So indirectly, people were losing whatever traditional sustainable system they had and making way for the richer, maybe richer way of life, but that would require them to bring in more heaters and artificial way of warming the rooms up. There's seepage from the roof because you have a flat roof. So I was like, okay, why not build a house and show them? Because people look up to people from the cities. At least, I don't know, maybe urbanization is the term now. So many of the village people are leaving to go to cities. So when someone from the city comes back and works in the village, they think I'm an educated person. I might not be smarter than them, but they think, oh, someone from the city is coming back and she's doing something. So they were very curious as to why I was building with mud as because I mean, mud is a very old material, I think, and it's easily available, but people want cement. So when I went there and I was like, okay, let's just start. I'm gonna make a easy. I use cement. It's a technique called earth bag. So old cement sacks were filled with soils from the earth, whatever was available. There were a lot landslides and stuff. So I just filled the soil and I started making walls. And every person who walked by that house, by the road, you would come and say, okay, what are you doing? This is going to fall down. The monsoon's going to come, the walls are going to fall. The car's going to bump, the buffalo might run into it. It had a various, I mean, it was fun, of course. There's a different, a buffalo's going to ram into my wall. Okay, why not? So it started that way. It took me about 6 months to get my walls up, and I was doing it with the village kids around. So the kids would come to help me make the mud plaster, which is a little like wine making. So you all stamp the mud and mix the soil and the clay and the straw, and then you apply it on the walls. So I would get the village kids to come help me. We play some local music, and everyone's very happy with it. So the process was fun, and villagers, even the ladies who started passing by, they were like, huh, maybe we can also help you one evening after our work. So it became like a community thing. And they realized that, okay, someone from the city is coming and doing something that we had left about 50 years ago, maybe. So, and eventually when the walls were built, and they realized how strong it was because a car actually rammed into my house and it did not fall. Like he was taking a reverse. And then people started stepping in and they were like, oh, this is warm. In fact, a villager came and asked me, can I rent your house for the winter? Because they moved on to a cement house and it's very cold because it's a snowy mountain place up there. So I think by the end of it, last year, I just finished the whole project, the one room and kitchen and toilet I built. And I had at least 10 people who from the village who would be like, can you help me build a house like this? So it was a traditional method that they had, but they destroyed it. And now, because they saw someone from the city and the house where I built, the property owner, he himself, the grandmom in that house, she started plastering with soil again because it's a traditional technique. And she's like, if someone, Neha, is coming from the city and doing this, why can't we do it? And that's when I realized maybe going to the smaller villages, I want to keep doing this is when I taught. So people, if you go there and show them what you're doing and how it is more sustainable in a way, because you're using traditional techniques, your carbon footprint is minimal. And in construction industry, I think that is a major because you are bringing in cement from 400 kilometers apart, or maybe even bricks, and all of it adds a lot of carbon footprint. And this sustainable way of building with whatever is available around, so bricks, soil, mud, clay, whatever is there. And that's when, I mean, I just went there and did that. And now I can see that people understand, but you just got to show them how. But if I had waited for some funding or some government thing, which I'm not capable of myself, I'm sure many people are, it would have never happened. And I don't think even the 5 people who now want to build or have started mud plastering would do it. So I think it's just go do it and do it, I guess.
That's amazing, Neha. This is so inspiring that everybody wants to do it. You just have to show them how. And one day we will all, hopefully, maybe we'll all have such houses somewhere. But thank you very much for sharing that very personal story, and I'm happy to know that your house is almost finished and still standing after an accident. Um, but I think, I mean, listening to your story, there are some learnings, right? That there's some knowledge that is lost, some traditional knowledge that is lost, and how you bring it back, and the level of kind of engagement within the community, right? I mean, of course, I think they're just intrinsically, we are aware and care about the environment, but how do you then engage? I mean, you spoke about how you would do it formally, and even for an educated person like you from the city, maybe you like figuring it out is difficult. So how is it then? How can people at the grassroots level do it? So taking some of those thoughts, I will now put my next question to Uttra, because I have read in great detail about this CITIIS project, and I know in each city you all have experimented with different approaches, some modern approaches, and I wonder if you've revived some of the traditional approaches as well, and just to hear how you perhaps incorporated some of these local reflections and perspectives into the way you even developed your project would be very interesting, because you actually sit in that very sweet spot where you have the access to creativity and thinking, but you also are under a government ministry, so you also have access to policymakers. So would love to hear how you all have done things differently.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. So, to get on to the examples, of how the CITIIS program. So CITIIS is City Investments to Innovate, Integrate and Sustain. That's the name of the program, and it's shortened to CITIIS. Very briefly, it's a joint initiative of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, the French Development Agency, the European Union, and of course, NIUA, the organization that I'm representing today. It's an established fact that cities, are growing bigger and we have more cities. So the transition, is inevitable. And but the way it happens is in our hands. The way we want to let that transition happen. So these cases that Priyanka that was talking about that are part of the report that is being launched today. Some of these, probably I'll just pick some examples to demonstrate what we've been discussing. So these cases are actually a result of this dedicated project design and development phase called the maturation phase, which Director Sir was discussing about, and even Tarun mentioned that there is this one step between project initiation and implementation. So usually in a typical urban development initiative, the project is designed, and the next step is that you start implementing, you start calling in contractors, and the construction work begins. But that's not what the program had in its design. So I'll give you a few examples. There was this one instant in one of the cities called Hubli. So Hubli is a tier 2 city in the southern part of the country. And there was there's this creek, or I would say Hubli Nala is what it is called. So that there was a rejuvenation project that was envisaged by the city when the proposal came in. And generally whenever any project of this kind is done, some kind of concrete lining comes up and some cleaning work happens, and then that's it. But due to the kind of process that was followed as per the guidelines of the program, gabion walls, which are essentially stone lining, stone masonry walls that are done across the creek or the nala. So when it was suggested to the city government that this is how you should go about it, they said no, the kind of load that comes in the creek during the monsoon time, it will not be able to handle it, and moreover this is not workable. Like Priyanka was saying that the buffalo might just break in. So similar example here, they said no, it won't work. But the technical assistants, the local expert, the international mentor, told them, and it is within the design of the program again, that there is a scope for experimentation, there is scope for pilot testing. So they said that you do a small stretch and test it and see it will work. So they put that in place, and the monsoons came. It was, in full capacity. The drain was in full capacity, and it withstood the load. So the city government then accepted that yes, there are nature-based solutions that can be used. They are sustainable and they're very much workable. It's not that you only have to have, concrete lining to be able to support it. Similarly, in other cities such as Agartala, which is in the northeastern part of the country, the capital of Tripura, has this beautiful river Howrah that cuts through the city. So in that, there's this technique called phytoremediation, which is a method to clean the water, which has pollutants in it. But this technique is usually used for only still water. Whereas, in this case, they are trying to use this in running water. So there was a lot of, I would say, reluctance that came up, that how would we do this, it's not possible, who will come and do this in this remote area of the country. But then because of the process that we had in the program, it was taken through, and now it is being implemented. So there are several of these examples that we have amongst these projects. I mean, you can look at all the examples in the report. Some other different kind of examples that I would like to highlight, I mean, other than the ecological solutions one, is also where the socioeconomic vulnerability of such initiatives are also taken care of. So there is this one project in Amritsar, which is in the northern state of Punjab in India, where the initial project was essentially to electrify diesel auto rickshaws. So auto rickshaws is an intermediate public transport. It's a last mile connectivity method that people use in the Southeast Asian countries. So essentially that was the initial project. But due to the process that we followed, it also led to the formalization of the auto rickshaw drivers into a cooperative society. Now, once you're a part of the cooperative society, the female members of those auto rickshaw drivers are also given skill development for looking forward to other livelihood opportunities. The project that I was discussing in Agartala, there were several families living on the riverfront. Their houses were getting flooded every year. They were living in a very bad state. But once they were identified that they're living in this development area in the riverfront, they were given proper housing in a much better condition, where they don't have to move out of their houses every year due to flooding, or the kind of conditions that they were living in. And the story didn't stop only after rehabilitating them to the location. After rehabilitation as well, the team at Agartala, which is the city's team based out of there, keeps on visiting them to understand their well-being, to understand if they're facing any other problems. So through the very design of this program, I would say experimentation and pilot testing was given space before implementation actually begins. And therefore, it addresses the key aspects of sustainability here, which is environmental and socioeconomic vulnerability. And therefore, we see that this is how you can perhaps, not only preach, in the form of capacity building initiatives that this is how you should do it, but have money on the table as well and say, see, this is how you should do it. We have the funding as well to support you, to test and see that this is how it works. And these cities have been the response has been really, really amazing, where the cities are saying that for the other initiatives that we are doing in the city, we would want to replicate what we are doing with you. So that has been the gift, the amazing response that we have had. So yeah, I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Uttra, for sharing all of these examples. And it's great to see how even though the inspiration may come from outside, it's very much being tailored to the context and the needs of what is required within the city. I just want to check with Stuart. Is 4:30 a hard stop? Do we have only 5 more minutes?
No, please carry on. This is fascinating to learn.
Okay, because I have one more question, and then I'll hand over to you, Stuart, to do some closing remarks. But my final question, because we're at time, to all the panelists and anybody who's listening in, I don't know if you can put your answers in the chat box. If you can't, then just put it in the Q&A box itself. But I want from each of you one key consideration for the way forward in terms of how India can balance this, the three Ps, right? People, planet, and progress. So one key consideration, if I go in the same order, I'll start with Tarun first, and then Neha and Uttra. And if anybody from the audience has an idea as well, please put it down wherever this system allows you to put it down.
I think this one key consideration, which stems from what I spoke in the beginning, is to give pathways and create pathways for the other actors that are part of the process of governance to become integral part of the sustainability journey. And I think from what we heard from Neha, from Hitesh, from Uttra, we already have some of these pathways that are being created, either through demonstration projects, either by creating knowledge tools and toolkits, which allow people. And I think the more of this information knowledge is available, the more mainstream the idea of sustainability becomes in the daily lives of people. I think that's when this balance would actually be achieved. Just to quickly think of an example in terms of, like there is this, the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966 in USA. It came up as an act to preserve cultural heritage because cities were being shorn of their cultural and natural heritage because of multiple freeways, and they were called freeway revolts. And this led to formulation of a national level act. But the context was very different. The time was the same, but the context was different. There was a cultural awakening. There was an understanding of people that they need to reclaim. We are not there yet, but maybe I think that is the kind of awakening, that is the kind of understanding that people, the other part of this governance ecosystem, when they realize, and that's when the acts, the programs, the projects are not completely driven by international consideration, but are driven by local needs, by local context, by the realities of people living in their own cities. So I think creating pathways for people to become part of this journey is the key consideration that I would point to.
Very, very important pathways. Before we move to you, Neha, I'm going to read out some of the ones that are posted in the Q&A by Siobhan P. Consistency in communication is key for India going forward. And an anonymous attendee, take into consideration people's recommendations and engaging them in the process. Pathways. Thank you. Neha, on to you.
So I would talk based on the construction industry itself. And if it were up to me, I would ask everyone to head back to a cave, but that's not going to be possible anymore. So when anyone's going to build, I would just ask people to pause and consider the materials. Whatever you use makes a lot of difference. So even the placement of a small window in your house, if you're going to place it on the west where the sun comes in, you'll need more air conditioning or heater. So a very small thing like placing your window will definitely matter when you're planning a house or when you're going to build a new house or any adjustment you're making. So pause, maybe talk to someone, or just common sense also works sometimes. So pause, look at the materials around and understand before you start building. Because in India, you can see people are just building haphazardly nowadays. And if you go to any cities, they're really just going tall and there's no consideration for anything that is living. Like, can the earth take that much, the power needed to take so much of people in one small piece of land versus how naturally it was before? So just pause and think, can you do it a little better? Just use anything available locally and you might make a lot of difference in the long term.
Thank you, Neha. You, Uttra.
Yeah, so I think I just put it in two words. One is to, contextualize, respond to context, whether, it is about a construction technique or a urban development initiative that you're trying to take. So respond to context. And secondly is constant engagement, from the local knowledge, whether it's from an expert or whether it's from a beneficiary. So that local, knowledge and that constant engagement, essentially are the two key things to look forward to.
I think Priyanka froze, so I'm going to jump in and maybe not closing remarks, but just join the conversation. I found the Neha's story very inspiring on a personal level of just getting your hands dirty, getting in the mud, quite literally, very inspirational. So congratulations for you to make that leap that many of us talk about. You're actually doing it. So I'm very in awe and respectful of your efforts. Inspiring insights from Uttra and Hitesh into the massive challenge of getting cities, nudging them to move that big boat, those massive freighters, right? Just a little bit to make what cascades down into huge sustainability changes for society. And that constant engagement that Uttra just reiterated is a key component of what we're trying to do at REVOLVE and in partnership with Kubernein, which is constant engagement, constant communication around positive and constructive angles of sustainability, not the doom and gloom that is so prevalent in bigger media outlets, but rather real stories like Neha's and like some of the city examples, and Tarun's analysis of the difference between government and governance. These are really important distinctions between understanding what's possible at a decision-making level and what's possible at a process implementation level, which was also iterated by Hitesh before. So I'm really happy to be on this call today and to have learned more than what's in the actual report. And thank you to the three of you for joining us today. I want to also reiterate what I said in the beginning, and that is to thank the contributors that may not be in the final PDF/publication, but that will appear online. And as I mentioned, we had great contributors providing written content and photo essays in our section called Views. We had a great one about Mumbai with some climate heroes from Hoshna Reporter, who's one of my favorite photojournalists out there. He just does great work. We had another one by Atul Borkar on otters, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So we had some great additional work that I encourage everyone to visit our website to see more about. That's revolve.media. And Priyanka, I'm going to throw the ball back to you to hear what your concluding remarks are.
Okay, I'm so sorry I froze, but technology, what can you say?
Sorry.
But this is fascinating. I think I wanted to have all of the contributors on this call, but it was really difficult. So hopefully we can do more of these conversations. I think a lot of perspective that has come out, of course, it's there in the report, but even through conversations, it's important for us to consider, and it's also going to be, I think, important going forward, and hopefully somebody from the G20 network is also listening in. I think the pieces that we have in this report make some very interesting and insightful recommendations as well. So I encourage everyone again to download the report and also visit the website to learn more. It is all free of charge, so please also feel free to share with your network. Thank you.